I have a problem. I made this interactive sales report in Excel. When I was presenting this to my boss, they wanted to know whatever report is shown on the screen at that time. This is an interactive one, so I can kind of change it to a different report while presenting. So whatever is shown to them at that time, they would like to take a snapshot of this and email it to the relevant people. It could be the category manager or the country head or whoever that is. So I got thinking, how do I do all of this? Now there are two ways in which we can do this. One, we could use VBA to generate and send the email. And the second option is we could also use Power Automate and Office Scripts. So I went with the Power Automate and Office Script option in this case because it means this thing is portable. So they don't have to see this on a computer. They could be reading this sales report in a browser window and still trigger the email process. So in this video, let me explain how I built the email automation using Excel, Office Scripts, and Power Automate. Think of this like a mini project that will introduce you to all these three concepts and then show you the power and beauty of creating a dynamic solution for your audience. Let's go. Here is my automatic report sender workbook. To use this, we need to select a product. Right now I have selected drinking cocoa and then specify the person who wants to receive this report. Right now I have set this to Bossman, but let's send this to the category manager for bars. Based on the person you select, I am loading the corresponding email address here. And then once you're ready, you need to tap on the send email button. This will trigger the Office script, which will execute and create a report and email it to that person. The button send email run succeeded. So let's go and see the email. Here is my email, sales report for drinking cocoa. Please review the latest sales report, and then the images are included here. To create this kind of a thing, we need to use two ingredients. One is Office Scripts and another is Power Automate. To start off, we need to have some charts or visuals or a range of cells that you want to email. The email will contain an image version of the data, not the actual data itself. So here I have got two charts. And I didn't want to put two images. So what I've done is selected both the charts and created a grouped object. This is really simple. You just hold Control and select both the charts, right click and then say group option. So right now I have grouped this. Once you group this, it's important to make a note of the name of this group. So here I'm going to go to my selection panel and then we can see that this group charts are called group 5. So make a note of this name and then we need to use the automate ribbon to create the necessary scripts. There are two scripts that I'm using here. You will understand why we need to use two in a minute. So the first one is generate report and the second one is send email. We'll take a look at these later, but first let's understand how to create a new script within Excel through the Office Scripts mechanism. So we can use a new script and it will write the bare minimum code. This uses a variation of JavaScript called TypeScript, and here we have got function main workbook Excel script dot workbook. So workbook refers to the calling workbook or this file in particular, and then we can access all the stuff in this file from this particular function. So instead of writing everything from scratch, because most of us, even I included, don't know anything about Office scripts. So here is what I did. I went to the automate ribbon and I recorded a script just to understand what are various things that are going on and how to do stuff. So I'm going to open a new file. And in this file, all we want to do is every day we want to go to the B2 cell and then type 10 there. It's a quite mundane job, but we just want to do it. Because we are lazy, we don't want to do this job manually. We want to click a button. The button will in turn type this number. So let's generate a Office script to do this kind of a thing. So we can open the automate ribbon and you can see that there is a record action button right now that we can use to record this. Previously, this button used to be only available on the Office for Web or Excel Online, but now they have added this particular feature to the desktop version as well. So let's record the actions and we'll make sure that we are selecting B2. Maybe we'll start off somewhere and then select B2 and then type 10 there. Once that is finished, I'm going to stop the recording. This will generate some piece of code that does exactly what we have just done. So let's see what this looks like. This is the code. All right, that's better. So here is my script. Function main workbook Excel script workbook, curly brackets, let selected sheet get active worksheet, selected sheet get range B2, set value 10. So here is the piece of code that is basically setting the number 10 onto the cell B2 of the active worksheet. Let's see what happens if I add a new sheet, and here if I run, because it's all happening on the selected sheet, hopefully this worksheet B2 should also have 10. So now that we are on a different sheet, if I run this, I'll have number 10 here. So our script is not only recorded, but when you run it again, you're able to reproduce the same result, but on a different worksheet. What if I want to have a different value? Maybe I want to have 300 here. So we can put that number and then again delete this value here. And let's just run this again. It will now be 300. So this is all good. It's called script 4. If you click here, you can give it a name, set B2. That's the name. You can put spaces and whatnot. And this script will be now saved and it will be added to the scripts that you have here. Yeah, so it gets added to my Office scripts area here. If I want, I can then share this script so that my colleagues can use it, or you can do all of the other stuff that you want to. But this is the script that sets the value to a number. We don't want setting the value kind of a thing. What we want is a little bit more complicated than this. So I'm gonna go back to our original thing, and here our task is we have got a grouped object. We would like to copy this as an image and make it available for an external process. The external process is then gonna take that image and then send an email. So that is the two-step process, because what Office script can do is it can execute actions right here. It cannot directly send an email. So this is where what the script will generate is an image, and then that image is then taken and used by the external process, which is Power Automate, to then send the email. So we are gonna write a new script here, which is basically a replica of my old script. So function main workbook Excel script workbook, and your code goes there. So here we are going to build some code that basically generates the image. Now, if you look at this function, it is just doing its job. It's not really producing any output. It will finish its job on the page itself. What we want is we want this to generate an image. So here, this function right now doesn't return anything. These kind of functions are called void functions because they don't produce anything. They just do stuff and then get out. So we need to produce an output. So we are going to create an interface. Interface my output. And within this interface, we are going to define what is it that we would like to generate. we want to generate a string which is equal to the image. So we can call this as rep image string. So this interface is just a string which is equivalent to rep image. Rep image is the name of the variable. Again, most of this, or at least I found that the Office script, writing it is kind of not very intuitive, especially having written quite a bit of code with VBA and Python and many other languages. I find that this language is a little bit harder to understand initially. I have to warn you that I have got significant experience of writing code in Java and JavaScript as well as C and C++ too. So most of this does make sense to me now, but even then the interfaces and all, I have not done this kind of stuff in many years. So I am finding this pretty hard too. Anyhow, we declare a interface that says my output, and then we say that this function main is gonna return my output. Okay, so the my output is my return value. Now there is a red color underlining here. It says you're not really returning anything in the function. The function is not doing anything, so that's why it is underlined. But when you finish writing your code, that underlining should go away. Now let's start by formulating the code in a more step-by-step manner, which is we can declare a variable let rep group is equal to, and then calculate the group that we have there. So maybe we need to have an access point to the current worksheet as well. So we'll start by first declaring a variable that says let ws is equal to workbook dot active get active worksheet. So this will basically give me my report worksheet. If you don't want to do active worksheet, you can also say get sheet and then point to the name of the sheet. That way, whether you are on any other page, it will always go and get the report thing. That's another foolproof way of doing this. So maybe we will change this to get worksheet, and here call the specific worksheet so that even if we are somewhere else, it will always go to worksheet. And then within the worksheet, we then want to figure out where the group 5 is. Remember, that is the name of this group. So this is ws dot get shape and then group 5. Okay, so these two are done. Now let's just see, and then here we will declare a constant rep image. Now whatever constant you're declaring should have the same name as the interface's variable name, is equal to rep group dot, and then here you have get image as base 64, get as image. We'll try the get image because this is what the code samples on Microsoft website also suggest. So get image, and what this will do is it will take this group and it will generate the image, but the image won't be a PNG or a JPG file or anything. It will be actually a string that corresponds to the image. So the bytes of the image are actually returned. At this point, we just want to test whether everything is working or not. So I'm going to use console. Console is an object, and then log rep image, and then we can now return the interface. So return rep image. So this is saying image is not assignable to type string. So obviously the get image, it's actually returning an image. So probably we need to have get image as base 64 and then specify the format as well. This is basically how I ended up writing as well, but I think I used a different function. We are just going to try this again. We'll see what it will do. So here format will be Excel script dot picture format, and then you specify what format you want. I want it in PNG, which will then take that and then return. So return curly brackets rep image. This is how we can kind of generate a interface. Let's this looks quite a bit technical, to be honest, and I'm not even sure if it's going to work exactly, because I think my original code looks something different, but let's just see. The expectation here is we will generate a console log that corresponds to the bytes. So I'm gonna pick after 9s. So this is the image that we want to go for. It should have India as the highest bar and then New Zealand next, and then run this. So it has run, and then the bytes are generated here. There's quite a bit of data, so I'm gonna click somewhere here, Control A, double click, and then copy this particular piece of code and go to base 64 to image. There is a couple of websites where you can test this. So I'm gonna use this code beautify and then paste it here. We'll get the bytes that we have generated correspond to this image. So it does seems to work. It has generated the necessary image that corresponds to this. Now, in order to email this, we not only need this image, but we also need who is the person who is receiving the image, as well as what is the title of the subject of that email is. So we do need those additional data points. So now let's add a few more items to the interface that we are going to generate. Email subject is a string or text value. Send to is also a string. Email subject is going to be automatically generated in the cell C2 using some sort of a logic. I have written some formulas that will generate this particular email title. It will change automatically. It's a very simple subject, but you can write more complex logic as well. So once this is done, then we'll need to write some more code to capture this. So this is done. Then I'm going to say const email subject is equal to ws.getRange, and then the address is C2. Now it's not enough that you get the range. If you have done any VBA coding, we normally just say range of C2, and then it will return the value of C2 when you use it in a string context. But here TypeScript or OfficeScript expects us that we actually give the correct conversion function as well. So we need to say get text so that that subject is returned. And then one more constant send to is equal to ws.getRange. And this address is here. This is my email address thing. So it's i22.getText. So now that those two constants are generated, I'm gonna pass that as well. Email subject send to. So my red underlining is now gone. Here, let's log the email subject. Console.log send to. And then again, I'm gonna pick this time eclairs. We'll see this and run this. So the subject will be sales report for eclairs, and it's going to go to that person there. All good. I think this thing is working. What it will do, this particular script 4, when you run this, is it's going to generate an interface which contains the image, the subject, and the send to email address. So now that this is ready, I'm going to name this as my generate report demo. Okay, because I already have got another one. When we save this, we save the file and go back. So here I have got generate report demo, and this is sitting in my sales report workbook. A key thing to remember is once you have got an Office script here, the script will work even if the file is on your computer. But if you would like to integrate this script with Power Automate, then you must save this into your OneDrive. So that's what I have done. I have saved this onto my own OneDrive folder. So once that has all been done, then the next step is to go to the Power Automate. So we are going to go here and then go to make.powerautomate.com and log in with your account. And at this point, you can just say create, and you can create any kind of a flow. But for us to kind of really use and play with this, we are going to go with the instant cloud flow, which can be manually triggered. So, and then here, the way we want to trigger this is, we can of course do a manual trigger, that is just click a button and it will go, but that is quite clumsy, because what happens is then you have to first go to this workbook, select something, and then you don't have send email button here anymore because the trigger cannot be from here. You'll then have to go to your flow either on the web or on your mobile and then tap a button, which is not intuitive. What I really want is something like this, where once the thing is generated, I want to click the button right here and then that should generate the thing for me. So this is where the trigger is not a manual flow, but you can use a HTTP request option. And this is something that I was not aware initially, and I saw a tutorial by Excel off the grid from Mark Proctor, and I learned about this particular one. So you can use this. It again looks a little bit clumsy, but once you see it all working, it does make sense. So we're going to create this as the trigger. And what this means is when you send a request or when you go to a specific URL, that's when the whole thing is going to run. What that URL is, we don't really know. It will be generated when you save this particular flow. So right now the URL is kind of unknown. We'll add a new step. So when we go to the URL, what do we want to do? We want to open this and run a script. So we want to go to our Excel Online or OneDrive and then run a script. So here you just point to your OneDrive or SharePoint folders. I'm going to go to my documents, Office scripts, and pick my sales report. And the script that I want to run is generate report demo. You can see that all the scripts within that workbook, whatever we have, like we even have the script for a set B2. So I can even run the script so that whenever I want to have 300 in that cell, I can go to a URL and it'll type that. But we want to do this. And then next step is, once the script is run, remember what the script is doing is it will generate an interface, or it will basically generate these three outputs. It will give me report image, email subject, and sender information. So once this information is available, then I want to email. When I initially tried send an email notification V3, it was not working. I found that V2 is what we need to use now. So that's what I'm using. And send an email. And then here, who needs to get the email? The email needs to be sent to my send to person. I was only seeing email subject and I got confused there, but it was showing. So it needs to be sent to send person. And then the subject needs to be email subject. And then the body needs to contain the report image. So you can take these variables and tag them there. Here in the body, I'm going to say, here is your sales report. And now we want to plug that image there, but the image is actually just a bunch of text values. Like you have seen here, this is the image. We don't want to just send a bunch of garbage text. We want to take this text, turn that into an image. So here you need to use a bunch of HTML code to do this. So once you have typed whatever you want, you can go to the code mode, code view, and from here you can write the image tag. So img src is equal to, and here again this is kind of unnecessary, but you need to follow a specific format to be able to attach a string as the image source, because otherwise normally what it expects is a full path, but we don't have path, we actually have the bytes. So you need to say data :image /png or whatever format you have used, semicolon base 64 comma, and then at this point you need to put the rep image. So this is the initial bit, and then close it. So what this will do is it will actually in the runtime generate the image which corresponds to those bits and bytes that you have seen. So once this bit is done, then my image setup is done. I'll save my thing. So this is the whole flow here. The flow will be triggered when you go to a specific URL. At that time, it will run the script which is sitting in the file on your OneDrive. And once the script finishes running, it will generate those variables, which will then be used to generate an email and then send that. Now, if I go here, I'll see my URL. This URL is a secret URL. You don't want to reveal this to anyone, because anytime if somebody knows this URL, anytime they go there, it will keep sending that email. So you don't want that. And yeah, that's pretty much it. This is done. I'm gonna name this thing as send sales report demo. So this is my flow. So, and then save this, and you can test this if you want, which will basically execute in real time, but we have got the URL, so we can test this like that as well. So now that this is done, I can open a new browser and then paste my URL there. As soon as you paste, it's gonna run the whole process and then send the email. So we're gonna do this. Before we press enter here, I want to just make a mental note of what we are looking. So we are going to get Baker's Choco Chip email. What I did notice is sometimes Power Automate and Office scripts are like one step behind, especially if you're quick, like, you know, you're on Baker's Choco Chip and you immediately select 85% dark bytes and send the email. Then sometimes I was getting the Baker's Choco Chip email, not the new one, because my file hasn't had a chance to update and upload a new copy to OneDrive. You may want to give it a few seconds or save the file before you do it again. Anyhow, once this is there, we'll go to our browser here, paste the thing and hit enter. I forgot one step, which is go to advanced, and you need to specify how this URL should work. So this is going to work with get. Otherwise, you know, you need to specify what the URL type is. All right, let's save this and then copy this, paste it again and run. So when you hit enter on that URL, the page will be blank, but internally what is happening is the flow is being triggered, and I'll get an email. So here I got the email with my sales report for Baker's Choco Chips. Here is your latest report and all of that. So this is the kind of like the 80% of the script. The other 20% is we don't want to ask our audience that every time you want a report, go to that URL and hit and enter. That's kind of like unfriendly way of doing this. So my next step is to kind of have a button here that says send me the email, right? So the original button that I had is insert shape and then draw a shape. I'm going to draw one here, send email. We'll call this 2, and then right click, link, and here we make this button a hyperlink by pasting that URL. So if I click on this link, it will basically take me to a browser window where it's as if I'm going to that link, and then it will open this. But because as soon as I go to that, I'm executing that script, I will eventually get a new email with my sales information. So this is the second solution. But this solution is clumsy because every time I click on this button, it will open a blank browser window, which is not really desirable. So this is where I got looking like, how do I set this up without having to open a new browser window? And this is where the Excel off the grid thing that I was talking about had some useful information. So here I have got a send email script that is set up. I'm going to edit this and you can see that. So this is the send email script that I generated. What this does is it's a separate Office script which will basically mimic the action of me going to the URL. So it will have the URL which is fixed, and then it will generate a new XML HTTP request which is equivalent to saying open the browser window and go to the URL. And then it will take this URL and open a request with the GET protocol, same as what we have mentioned earlier, that URL, and it will open it in asynchronous synchronous mode, and then it will send that without having to open anything. So basically send it, send the request, and do your thing. So as soon as this function runs, it will mimic the whole thing. So once you have such a function, you can click on these dots and you can add that function as a button on your screen. So that's the button that I have added here. This send email button is that. So what do I think? I find that the Power Automate Office script based solution is a little bit tedious and complex compared to the VBA option. Within VBA, we could write a simple function or a subroutine that would just do the whole thing with just one piece of code. Whereas with this solution that we have built, there are too many moving components. We need to build something in Office scripts, then do something in Power Automate, come back and integrate that with Office scripts. So there's just too many things going on. Also, the language itself, the TypeScript language, is a little bit harder to understand and use than the VBA option. What about you? What do you think? Have you done anything like this? Have you used Office scripts and Power Automate to do some automation at your work? Let me know in the comments what you felt about this option and how you think it compares with other alternatives that are out there. As always, it is a pleasure talking to you, and I hope you enjoyed this particular video. You are really awesome for taking time to learn from me. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, and if this is your first time here on my channel, a big welcome to you. Thank you, and I'll catch you again somewhere. Bye.